Welcome, dear children. So our topic for today is something that I'm not going to tell you right now. Before that, let us see what these sentences are saying. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. We all scream, I scream. Sorry. I run, you run, we all run for fun. Now in the first sentence, if you see, all are screaming, right? And who is receiving the scream? The ice cream, right? But in the next sentence, all are running. But who is receiving the run? No one. So we all know obviously that in the first sentence we have an object, that is ice cream. But in the second sentence we don't have any object. Fun is not an object, right? And our today's topic is based on this only. We have already done about the objects of verbs, that is the direct and the indirect object. So there's a topic which is related to this direct and indirect object, and that is something that I'm going to reveal to you in the next slide. Yes, so our topic is transitive and intransitive verb. Now this is a very important topic, and this is very important and very much related to direct and indirect. So we know what is a direct object, what is an indirect object. In a sentence, if the object receives the action and it answers the question what or whom, then it is direct object. For example, I ate a banana. I ate what? A banana. And who is receiving the ate? Banana. Hence here my direct object is banana. But if there is another object in a sentence which is an addition to direct object, and that object receives the direct object and answers for whom, at whom, to whom, etc., then it becomes indirect object. If I write, I bought a banana for her. So I bought what? A banana. I bought a banana for whom? For her. So her here is receiving banana, and that is my indirect object. Suppose I give you an example. I kicked a ball to him or at him, whatever. So I kicked what? A ball. Who is receiving the kick? Ball. Ball is my direct object. Who is receiving the ball? Him. So him is my indirect object. I kicked the ball to whom? Him. I kicked the ball at him or at whom? Him. So him is my indirect object. This we already know. We have done it previously. It was just a recap. Now let's move forward and let's see what is transitive and intransitive verbs. So first we'll start with transitive verbs. What are transitive verbs? Transitive verbs are the verbs that should be followed by an object. The verbs that transfer their action. Okay, the verbs that transfer their action to an object. It can be a direct object, it can be an indirect object. Of course, a direct object is mandatory because without direct object there won't be an indirect object. So that's what transitive verbs are. For example, he wrote and he wrote a letter. Now in the first example, if you see, he wrote is not making any complete sense. So to make sense, this verb needs an object which can be transferred, right? This verb needs an object wherein the action can be transferred to that object. Like he wrote a letter. So he wrote what? A letter. Wrote is getting transferred to a letter, and who is receiving the wrote? The letter. So letter is of course our direct object and wrote is our intransitive verb. So intransitive verb actually transfer the action to the object. They need an object to make complete sense. Now this I have already discussed with you, that why he wrote a letter. A letter is actually completing the sense here. Now intransitive verb can have a direct object, can have an indirect object, or both in a sentence. We all know that indirect object is just an addition to direct object. So if I write he wrote a letter to his mother, again wrote is our intransitive verb because we have an object here which is getting transferred. Okay. Now the objects, we all have discussed this in a direct indirect object also. The object that we use as a direct or an indirect object can be a noun. It can be a noun phrase which is nothing but the combination of an article and a noun or an adjective and a noun. And it can be a pronoun as well. The next important part for a transitive verb is that if you are able to change the sentence into a passive voice, then that verb is transitive verb. Like he wrote a letter. I can change it into passive voice saying a letter was written by him, right? But he wrote, I cannot change that into a passive voice. So he wrote there is not a transitive verb, but in the second sentence wrote is a transitive verb. So that is one more tip for you to identify whether a verb is a transitive or not. First and foremost, you need to see if there is a direct object or not. If of course there is a direct object, then that verb is a transitive verb. Second, you need to see that if it can be changed into a passive voice or not. And you need to understand that the verb in the transitive verb, they transfer the action to the object. So without the object, it will not make any sense. Another important point for you to identify a transitive verb is that the transitive verb is never followed by a preposition. If I write he wrote for his mother, so this will never be a transitive verb because after wrote we have preposition for, right? So in such cases, if you have a transitive verb, if you have a verb and there is a preposition after it, then that verb will not be a transitive verb because transitive verbs are not followed by a preposition immediately. And it answers, of course, the verb answers the question what or whom, any of these two. He asked a question. He asked what? A question. So after ask, we don't have a preposition, we have an article. And he asked what? A question. We have a direct object. And can I change it into passive voice? Yes, I can. I will write a question was asked by him. Hence, asked over here is undoubtedly a transitive verb. Now, yes, I told you all the verb asked is not followed by a preposition. The action is being transferred. Asked a question. So, question is receiving asked. Question is the direct object and it is answering what. So this is our transitive verb. So now in all we can conclude that transitive verbs answers the question either what and whom. It should have an object to make sense, and it transfers their action to the object. Most important point is that it is never followed by a preposition and it can be changed into a passive voice. Now let's see what are intransitive verbs.